I'm fascinated by social media. I mean, I think I'm probably quite much older than anybody else here. I'm 56 years old. But I love Twitter. And we use Twitter extensively at the Bee. We ask you to help get listeners to our programs. We ask you to help get viewers to our telly programs. We put pictures up. We've got quite strict rules as to what we can and can't do. So we can't do the things you can do. We can't upload lots of family pictures or work pictures because they're not part of the BBC's ethics. So we've got to be careful. Also, from our point of view, but we've got to be careful we're not promoting one social media platform above others, because there are others. So Facebook and Twitter are the two biggies. Most of our programs have their own Facebook accounts. Most of our programs have their own Twitter accounts. And we do try and ask them to help us. So at Lunchtime Radio, we will be asking a Twitter question, maybe 2 or 3. We'll be flagging up that there's going to be a good interview coming up. We'll be flagging up the fact that this is the podcast. Likewise, Facebook. And the Olympics, as Alex will talk about in 2 seconds, I'll be very brief to start with. In the Olympics in London, a lot of our presenters were using photographs of what they've seen, people they've met. Here's Usain Bolt, I bumped into him. Here's an interview I've just seen. So it's become huge. And within my lifetime, the last 4 or 5 years, suddenly exploded. And you're all there either in businesses or in enterprises where you want to use it. So we're learning as well, actually. We have teams of people in the BBC looking to find out what the best way of using it is. And it's hugely effective. And I think in terms of Glasgow, it's going to be hugely effective too. And exciting. It's the exciting thing to be involved in. It's a bizarre thing, isn't it? Because when you put a tweet out and 600 people come back, it's very exciting. So that's the beauty of new media, as an old man's perspective. And obviously being Beeb, I'm not being paid for this, so rest assured I'm not making money here. I'm here because it's interesting. And I find the whole thing absolutely fascinating. Okay? So first up, we're going to have 4 short speeches. Then I always think the best thing to do is try and get knowledge from these people. So they'll happily take questions. I think we've got 50 minutes, if you want, of questions from 4 of the best voices in the business, I think. So let's start with Alex, who was in London, was the guy, and he can be more clear about this, but he was low-cog and new media in London, and that's when new media and sport, I think, found this incredible blend where they both multiplied each other. And London 2012 was an unbelievable new media digital extravaganza. So first speaker, Alex Balfour.
So I joined the London Organising Committee in 2006. I was employed under 73. We were about 200,000 if you count volunteers and G4S by the end. But the journey for me then was, and back in 2006, in fact 2005, July 2005, when London won the bid in Singapore to stage the 2012 Games, there were more dial-up connections than broadband. Social media was Bebo and MySpace, and Twitter didn't exist, and about 3 or 4 million people had 3G connections on their phone because they had them through 3. That was the network that was giving them away because they wanted to build some share, but no one actually knew how to find the internet on it because there weren't any touchscreen phones. The iPhone didn't arrive until 2008. So through that period, there was a movement across all segments of society into broadband, into mobile internet, and into social media, where they went from being something that was mainly the preserve of the 16 to 24s to something that everybody was doing. But at the start of that cycle, I remember sitting down with the International Olympic Committee and their head lawyer, Howard, who was asked around the table, was, the question was put up, so what consumption habits are going to be different? I'm not sure this is quite how they put it, but I'll characterise it. What consumption habits will be different during the Games? I said, well, what will happen is everybody who's digital will be sharing stuff. So obviously the next question for the lawyers, well, how do we stop them doing that? I said, no, you can't. You should embrace it. And I think we went on the journey from how do we stop them through to how do we encourage everyone. And actually had some interesting learnings along the way that, the fear of guys, particularly people who've spent huge money on TV rights, and ultimately these events are first and foremost TV events. 97% of watching of the London Games in the UK was on live traditional television, not even on iPlayer, but on live traditional television. But that doesn't mean that there's a huge secondary market for all of us tweeting, following, using apps, whatever it might be. But the fear amongst television guys was, this is going to take away our market. We paid all these rights to film all this stuff, and people are going to be sitting there with their phones filming it all. But actually that's not what happens, of course, because you don't want to see what somebody from row M, seat 63 is showing you on a flaky connection, because they haven't got an HD camera, they don't actually know how that sport works, they're not thinking through where the right angle might be and giving you the best positioning. You want to see that through the biggest possible screen, and in fact, and some of you may have seen Super HD and next generation telly, what you get is, what you want is even bigger screens. The problem with the technology then actually is that our houses aren't big enough to put these great big screens on the wall where you can see something in even more hyper reality. So this actually remains a constant, but it's what you the companion piece here is the really interesting piece. And then again to John's point around Twitter, that for us, and I was speaking and I'm able, Paul is right in the thick of it now, so out of respect for his colleagues in the process can probably be less candid than I can, but my journey with even my immediate colleagues, I was part of the communications team, was really, well, I'd been a digital kind of native from, I got into it very early in the early 90s, just through happenstance, and I'd done everything was digital first for me, but I had a real problem persuading my colleagues in communications, my PR and media team, who were working a hard job and every day facing off to a tough press, to understand the value of digital. It was confusing because I had more people coming to the website than reading London's paper of record, the Evening Standard, with its diminishing audiences, but they were still taking all those journalists very seriously, and part of it I think was just simply force of habit, that they knew how to work a journalist on the phone and worry about positioning in the paper and whether a story had got legs or not got legs. But the big moment where digital shifted in that landscape was Twitter, and probably the moment was Michael Jackson's death, which got announced on Twitter or through is it DMZ, one of the gossip sites. Suddenly it became digital first. Suddenly all the journalists move onto Twitter, and arguably Twitter's not actually it's nothing like the size of Facebook. It's already got past the point where it probably will be a mass on social media. It's actually quite small, but it has a very high concentration of movers and shakers, and particularly traditional media, who love it because it's very discursive in a way that works for traditional media. It's great for breaking news. And that suddenly brought my communications team sort of round our desks saying, hang on, we like this whole new media thing now, and we want to be part of it because Twitter is moving our journalists along. And of course, there were journalists, James Pearce from the BBC, who was the sort of go-to guy on ticket stories, was constantly feeding off Twitter, aggressively pushing out and asking people, have you got problems, have you got tickets, are low-cost screwing up, trying to solicit stuff. So that was right in the heartland of where the PR and media guys wanted to be. And then fast forward to the Games, we then found ourselves in a position where there's a great image you may have seen, I think it was an AP or an AFP image, where they put side by side the paper election in 2013 from 2005, I think it was, to 2013, paper elections. And the former one, you see a whole crowd of people in St. Peter's Square looking to see the Pope in the far distance, with one guy, one solitary guy holding up a flip phone with a kind of image on it, who's desperately trying to take a photo and working out which stupid menu option it is to do that. And then 2013, and everybody has a phone and a tablet, holding them up like this. And I still don't get that one. You see people walking around the Olympic Park with a tablet like this, not actually wanting to use their own eyes, so that they take photographs of everything so that they can share it with someone or themselves. And that was part of our challenge, is not only were people on social, but they were on it, and they were on mobile, but they were on it while they were doing other stuff, whether it was simply watching television, or if they were lucky enough, it was actually being at events, which meant a slight capacity crunch, because we had to do all these things in parallel and provide more service to more channels, but also, from a pure communications point of view, you've got to service all these channels in parallel, so you can't just rely on the media to push the story of your games to the wider world. You've got to be active in all these channels at the same time, providing everyone with the best quality service you can, which is, from a pure work point of view, a lot of effort. I mean, I think the best way of expressing that is my job started out in 2012 as a brief to build one website and another one at the time of the Games, with a friend of mine saying at the time, what are you going to do for 6 years? To us actually building 80 websites, having over 100 social media channels and 3 apps, with the same size team and budget that we scoped at the start for 2. So, and I know Paul's going through that exact same challenge, and we were talking just this morning about how all the work that you do just constantly gets churned over. So Glasgow's been through the cycle of tickets, and we had multiple ticket websites as Glasgow 1 or 2 around ballots and launches and real-time sales, and then one thing moved on, rip that site apart, do a new one, and it just keeps on going, and that's the pressure you end up being under. So I think sort of final point in Glasgow is that one of our big learnings at London was people's appetite for consumption. People are increasingly sophisticated about how they use digital media. We were surprised by the extent to which people not only were on mobile, 60% of all our services, digital services, are accessed from mobile devices, but also the extent to which people want real-time, in-the-moment information. So people don't want to read long-form, traditional newspaper-style stories. So imagine Usain Bolt crossing the line, press the tape, press association provided. We have 10,000 stories a day, 10,000 stories over the games being generated from our own dedicated news service, filtered by the press association. Probably within 3 minutes they'd have a full piece of copy that nobody wants to read, because everybody already knows that Usain Bolt has won. You don't need to read that in detail or effectively in triplicate. What you want to see is what was the time, what were the other people's times, medal table, what effect does that have, what effect does that have for my country or for Jamaica, right, where's his tweet, where's his mum's tweet, where's the photo? And if you can queue all that stuff up, people just feed and feed and feed, and we do it almost unconsciously. We're sitting there spending so much time on these devices. Our average visit time on our website was 8.5 minutes, which is pretty big in web terms, actually 3 times what they've experienced in the Vancouver 2010 games. But the average visit time on our apps and tablet apps was 1 hour and 15 minutes. So people are almost never putting them down without even realising it, because they just feed off that data, and that's the world we live in.
So my remit really covers the Glasgow 2014 website, which is never just one website. It constantly changes and evolves for all the campaigns and programmes that we go through. Our social media channels, our email and database programme, our film production, and all the campaign activity that we do as well, all comes from my team. So it's quite an exciting position. It's constantly changing, and no 2 days are the same. And it's really only, if we look at the numbers now, with less than 150 days to go into the Games, when 70 nations and territories will send 6,500 athletes and officials over to Glasgow and to Scotland. So it's really, it's an astonishing thing that's going to happen, an opportunity for Scotland. They'll compete across 17 sports. We'll sell 1 million tickets to the public. And the sports will run across 40 venues and be supported by 15,000 volunteers. It really is the biggest sporting and cultural event in Scotland's history. I guess if you look back, sport has always driven and pushed innovation, and the Commonwealth Games has played a part in that. It was 1954 and the famous Miracle Mile between Landy and Bannister. That was also the first coast-to-coast live broadcast in US history, which has obviously changed today. We're high definition, and last year at the Olympics we saw some super high definition, right through to the inclusion of parasport events in 2002 at the Commonwealth Games. And social media, as Alex has already touched on, has really changed the landscape. And if we look back to Commonwealth Games milestones, it was Melbourne in 2006, Twitter hadn't even been launched, and Facebook had 7 million global users, which is just incredible numbers now compared to 1.23 billion Facebook users globally. We're now sending 500 million tweets a day, and 1 in 5 online minutes in the UK are spent on Facebook. And it's not confined to just traditional desktop computers either. People are taking it with them, with 70% of Twitter traffic being out of home and 80% being across mobile. So sport and social really goes hand in hand, and 8 out of 10 of the most tweeted moments, according to Twitter, are sport related. London obviously successfully positioned themselves as the first digital games, and I think there's an opportunity for Glasgow to position ourselves as the social games. So for us, our focus today on social media has been about trying to build this sense of community. We don't want people to be on the outside just watching the games happen. We want people to be inside, making the games fantastic and creating their own games experience. And if we really want to occupy the space of being these social games, we need to embrace what it really means to be social and to be truly social. So it's about encouraging and participating in dialogue, not just broadcasting messages, providing interesting and valuable insights and content. It's stuff that people really want to read about, people really want to view. We need to act as much as possible in real time. We just can't expect to go back to people days or weeks later. We need to interact with communities. We need to provide a platform for them to show their support for the games, and we're trying to do that today, and we'll continue to do that as we get up to games time. And I guess we need to accept that we can't control everything. and embrace the unexpected. We can't always get everything right. And maybe ticketing is quite a good example. Not that anything was wrong. We spent a lot of time and effort to make sure our ticket pricing was right and it was accessible, and people knew what the process was going to be to apply for tickets. And we did such a good job that we had 2.3 million requests for tickets, and we only had 1 million tickets to give away. So rightly so, you're going to get disappointed people in, and we have to try and manage that across social media too. So it's a nice problem to have, but it's something that we have to deal with. People are going to be disappointed if they can't get involved in the games. So looking forward to the next 6 months, in the short time we have until the games, our main challenges really, as I see them, are we need to be able to deliver a compelling content strategy across all those groups. So that's people like our volunteers, our athletes, our ticket buyers, the international visitors to the city, the sports fans, the cultural groups. And it has to work across when they've joined us on the journey. We've been working quite hard on it digitally for 2 years I've been at the OC, but not everybody's been involved in the games to date. So we need to appreciate that people have just joined us closer to the games time, when traditionally we always see large spikes in interest. We have to have the confidence that social helps us to strengthen our marketing propositions around ownership and participation. We need to understand that any participation with us, be it it's a click or it's a subscription to an email newsletter, or it's a ticket purchase, or it's a I want to volunteer, that needs to be earned from people. So we need to capture attention, and we need to inspire people to take part and create this sense of it's important for you to join in and you can make it your own games. We need to use our partners, our sponsor family and our digital communications effectively to deliver some innovative solutions at games time. We don't have endless budgets, so we need to be careful about how we spend that money, and create items and platforms that people really want to engage with. And the big challenge for us, I guess, as a team, is a need to continue to demonstrate that the efforts that we put into social media actually deliver against our key organisational objectives. So we're getting the right number of people volunteering, and when it comes to games time, it's a motivated and excited and passionate workforce. We need to deliver ticket sales, obviously. We want our stadia to be absolutely packed to create a fantastic atmosphere for the athletes to perform to their best. And we've got to remember that we will also have, a viewing number of 1.5 billion people will tune in across digital and across television. So we want them to see a fantastic atmosphere in Glasgow, putting on a fantastic games. We want to motivate people to come out and support the baton when it returns to Scotland. We have Tour Scotland for 40 days before it goes to the opening ceremony and marks the start of the games. It's an opportunity for us to show Scotland off and the best of Scotland on a global platform. And we want to create a really strong sense of pride in the country and the city, as the eyes of the world will be in Glasgow for the first time in a long time. And we obviously want people to go out and support our countries and support our athletes. So it's a really compelling experience they have of Glasgow 2014. And finally, at games time, we need to consider how we can deliver a level of customer service across our social media channels. We know the traffic will spike 100 times what we have at the moment. So that's going to be a challenge for us. We need to ensure our messaging is consistent across all our partner organisations. We are the organising committee, but we work very closely with the Scottish Government, Glasgow City Council, Police Scotland, Creative Scotland, and we need to make sure all that messaging is as consistent as possible. We obviously want to capture, share and celebrate the excitement of the city when it's in full swing at games time, and really demonstrate that Scotland has got behind the games. And I guess as a final thing, probably, we need to ensure we have entertaining and good news stories for the journalists that will arrive a week before, so that we don't end up in a similar situation to Sochi. So that's it in a nutshell, really. It's a really exciting time, and I hope people are excited about the games coming to Glasgow and Scotland, as we are, and we're putting in huge efforts to make sure it's a fantastic event for everyone.
So I'm from the Department of Marketing in Strathclyde Business School, where we've got a broad interest in digital marketing. We're actually planning a MOOC, one of these wonderful online courses in digital marketing. We do destination marketing, we do sports marketing, and we certainly teach e-marketing as well. My own interests are those of a lifelong data analyst. I've been interested in people who have difficult data because there's either a large amount of it or it's got complicated structure. So the sort of things that you get from social media fit easily into that. And the trouble with social media, it's very easy to get what are called social media metrics, sort of measures of what's happening. And a lot of them are really pretty low level and don't deliver the sorts of things that you would hope to do for a good marketing purpose. So I would say be suspicious of the people who tell you, oh, my social media metrics and analytics will deliver what's necessary for your organisation very easily, because it's a challenging thing to do right, and it can be an expensive thing to do right as well. So I've got some experience in doing that with a recent project I'm involved in, which is to do with the independence debate. And this is looking at social media and forums and things of that sort of type, and working out where things are in terms of the various campaigns and the sort of things that people are saying. So I'm taking a very elementary approach to that, which is to use a certain statistical package and packages that you can get within that package. Anyhow, which deliver me the ability to do some social media metrics cheap, i.e. for nothing, just my time. So that's something I'm developing courses in how to do. But what would be more accessible is the idea of sentiment analysis, which is where you look at social media and you see whether people are being positive, whether people are being negative, and try to work out metrics that show you whether what's the trend in terms of the things people are saying in the independence debate. So we're looking to find that out. I'm a little worried that the off-the-peg sentiment analysis by matching words aren't going to use the words that we're using when we're being rude about Alex Salmon or whatever on the independence debate. So I've got a lot of really interesting things to do that. But it's got a similar peaking problem that beginning of December, about 2,000 internet mentions of IndieRef, and by the end of January it was getting up to 8,000. So it's certainly peaking in terms of the amount of tweets and Facebook entries that's going on. And it seems to be that the people who are doing the tweeting are much more Yes campaign, significantly more Yes campaign than no campaign, just in terms of what's going on. And you'll see that if you dare to look at the stream of abuse that appears on these channels. So that's gives an idea of what I'm doing. I've been involved with some other projects which I think might be relevant to the Commonwealth Games, which is third screen marketing. The idea of when you are at home watching the television, you tend to have either your tablet or your laptop on your lap and you're doing something else. And this provides an opportunity for people to do marketing to you that's more specific and knows that you're doing the program. So there's applications and programs, one called ZBox, that you've heard of, which as you are watching the program, you can see all the tweets that are mentioning that program, things in direction. So it's something that you can have the equivalent of, and I'm sure ZBox will have been running it for sports events. Just don't watch sports events that much, so I wouldn't know. So I wouldn't use ZBox while doing it. I'm sure they would have those sorts of things available, which gives you, the viewer, the possibility of the things that can't be delivered by the short-term Commonwealth Games site, which is, I want, as our first speaker was saying, I want to be able to not only know what the result of this match is, of this race, I want to know what's the person's like, I want to see their tweets, I want to see their Facebook page. Now those don't tend to be available, they're not available through the sort of database of participants that we get through the Commonwealth Games or the Olympic Games website at the moment. So that's quite a challenge. And I have an art student who did a project on this, and she was a great example of to a degree at Strathclyde, and she's gone on and got employed by ZBox, and she's done some work in Australia and is now working in London. signs of employability as a consequence of this?
My speciality is mainly small to medium and exclusively small to medium-sized organisations and businesses, charities, arts organisations, hotels, magazines, lawyers and accountants, to name a few industries. So my interest in social at scale is to actually help those organisations to develop strategies which will allow them to grow their brand and their influence massively using things like Facebook and Twitter. So things like Commonwealth Games, we're anticipating, I think it's a huge, couple of billion people are going to be watching those games at some point over the period. So my strategy would be to help organisations to get in front of that. So what happens normally with the big media events, big sporting events traditionally, like the Super Bowl, for example, which just happened in January, you have an audience of 111 million people, and if you want to reach that audience and put your particular brand or message in front of them, it's generally going to cost around about $30 per 1,000 people that you see. So obviously, if there's a huge amount during that minute that you're trying to book a space, you're going to multiply it by that. However, with things like Facebook and Twitter, you can actually make sure that your message is put in front of the people who are watching the Commonwealth Games, who have liked badminton, and who are aged between 25 and 35, who are perhaps women who have maybe just got engaged and have bought a Mercedes car. You know, that's the kind of level of focus and targeting that is now possible, particularly through Facebook. So, I mean, that's the kind of things that I'm looking forward to doing. As an example of that, I've just been working with a company in Western Australia, and over the last month we've managed to deliver 1.3 million views to their website just through Facebook and Twitter, and then that's converted into 1.8 thousand new likes on their website. So the levels of engagement, the levels of possibility for small organizations to actually punch massively above their weight now compared to in the past is enormous. Because in the past, marketing and brands was all about how big is your budget, how much can you spend. Whereas nowadays, it's how targeted can you get in front of the right audience at precisely the right time. I'm also looking forward to the Commonwealth Games Glasgow 2012 because of the fact that a lot of brands are beginning to realise that it's cool to be human. So what we've had recently is a lot of brands like Tesco and Sainsbury's and Cadbury and O2, you know, on their Twitter feeds giving things like dating advice or advising people that they're going to replace Hulk Hogan sandwiches or Tiger bread, you know. So all that kind of banter that's beginning to start developing, where obviously at the beginning of social media, a lot of big brands were very scared about liberating their people to actually have chat on social media. Now they're beginning to edge themselves forward slightly into allowing their staff to have all the training and to be actually rigid in them understanding how to make sure you know how to deal with trolls, you know how to deal with people who are being really offensive, and that in turn liberates them to actually let the personality of that individual and therefore that brand get free in a sense. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to, in particular, the fact that this is Glasgow. And I don't know about you, but I think that Glasgow is one of the funniest places in the world. In the sense of comedy, we have a nation of comedians living right here amongst us. So I support the idea that we're going to be looking forward to the big social games. But I think one of the biggest assets that Glasgow and Scotland has in particular is humour, and I would like to see this being the big humour games as well. So, because at the end of the day, when you have tweets that are coming from large organisations that understand that you're dealing with human beings, you're not a big marketing organisation, although of course you are, that's the big iceberg, but at the top of it, you've allowed people to actually go in there and have a bit of banter on Twitter, have a bit of banter on Facebook, and that really makes people's understanding of what's going on and relationship building much more intense, because at the end of the day, everything to do with social media is about relationship building. If you're not relationship building, if you're not networking properly, then you're just doing old school marketing. If your engagement rate is rubbish, then you're just doing old school marketing. If you're just in broadcasting mode, then you're not doing social media. It doesn't matter how many likes you've got, if your engagement rate is rubbish, you're not doing social media. So that's kind of where I am with social media. I'm looking forward to the massive scale that is possible for charities and arts organisations, and of course the accountants who might want to make sure their message is put in front of the badminton crowd or whoever it is they're particularly looking forward to. And I think it's going to be great for the country, and personally I'm really looking forward to the humour games.